Today on Monkey Life, Stumpie Freddy's dental issue proves taxing for wildlife vet John Lewis.
The upper, well, all the canines have big roots. It might be sit up on the table job, this one.
Busybody lemur Kaiyah receives a muted welcome when she returns to her troop after a group bust-up.
No one is calling back to her, which is quite telling at the minute.
And Ash tries out her lumberjack skills. But Rodders runs off with the spoils. Monkey World in Dorset, buried deep in the English countryside, is the largest sanctuary of its kind on the planet. The team, led by Dr. Alison Cronin, rescue and rehabilitate abused and unwanted primates from all over the world.
I can't keep her in, get her in. Okay, got it.
The park provides a home for more than 260 primates from 24 different species. It's another busy day at the park for wildlife vet John Lewis. Along with animal director Jeremy, he's heading to the Stumpie house to anaesthetise Freddy.
So, just to confirm, he hasn't eaten today. Good.
Freddy has a nasty abscess on his face, which needs examining. It could be a dental issue, often a problem for ageing stump-tailed macaques. The species are sometimes referred to as dustbins because they'll eat almost anything. And Freddy is no exception. Freddy's been anaesthetised, loaded into a travel crate, and is now on his way to the park's hospital.
Jeremy managed to net him without too much difficulty, and so we can hand inject through the net, which is always better than darting.
No one's sure exactly how old Freddy is. He arrived from an animal rescue centre in Belgium in 2016, along with his pal Toto, without any medical history. At the hospital, John intubates him and takes a look inside the Stumpie's mouth.
Well, there's two teeth on that side which could be responsible. One is the upper incisor number 2, and the other is the right incisor 2 and the upper right canine. I'll go for the canine first because that'll be the hardest work.
If the canine is infected and causing the abscess, removing it will be far from easy.
The upper, well, all the canines have big roots. It might be sit up on the table job, this one.
It requires a lot of probing to try and loosen the tooth from the gum before John can even think of extracting.
This is testing, this isn't pulling. Just seeing if we've got any movement. Not really. Keep on going.
It takes John more than an hour of hard work.
I'm sensing a weak spot.
Before finally, the canine comes free.
You can see why the root is such a problem to get out. It's huge.
John is satisfied that the canine was the cause of the problem.
It has quite enough trauma for an old guy at the moment, so we'll let him come round and see how that does. You see that little hole there on the side of his face? That's the clue that it's a canine, because the canine sits in the jaw and the root comes out roughly there. So any infection tracking up the root forms an abscess and then bursts out on the side of the face. So funnily enough, that is a clue to a canine problem.
Once the wound is flushed out, Freddy is returned to his transport box to recover from the anaesthetic, under the watchful eye of Jeremy. He has quite a soft spot for the species.
They take me back. You know, when I was a lad, in our zoo, we had old-fashioned monkeys, you know, old world, roughy-tufty baboons, macaques, mangabeys. We actually had some stump-tailed macaques, and nobody knew what they were. Even my father, who was supposed to have been the expert on everything that ever lived and breathed, nobody actually knew what they were. They were the unidentified Basher and Ada, and they live forever, and they're as hard as nails, and I love them to bits.
Freddy will be sore for a few days, but should heal up quite quickly. Nothing stops a Stumpie when it comes to food. The park is home to the world's last captive breeding group of woolly monkeys outside South America. Woolies are difficult to look after in captivity and are endangered in the wild, so it's a huge credit to the primate care team that they're thriving at Monkey World. They do all they can to look after this special species. As part of that effort, the maintenance team are hard at work at the home of Enzo's group, known as the Pond Woolies. The troop has expanded recently with the arrival of Kaiyah's baby, Esmeralda. To give them more space, their indoor living area is being extended and a brand new fully roofed outdoor enclosure is being built. To accommodate this, a couple of large willow trees had to be felled. But they're not going to waste. The team have a plan. 2 groups of chimps are in for a catkin-filled treat.
It is nice to give them something that they won't necessarily get all year round. It is good enrichment for them. It's something that's natural. What they'll do with the branches from willow is that they peel the bark off and then chew it up and make it into a wadge, which is a natural behaviour which we want to encourage in captivity. So in the wild, they'd sit and chew on these fibrous things and make what we call wadges or boluses, which is just like a big ball of chewed up fibrous plant matter that they sit within the lip. But it's this comfort thing of having something in their mouths. And they'll do that with the willow bark.
The lucky chimps today are Bart's group of 16 and Bryan's smaller troop of 5. Hannah opens the slide to let the chimps at Bart's enclosure go first. High-ranking females Beth and Cindy lead the group out. But at this time of day, even new trees in the enclosure don't take precedence over a fruit breakfast. As leader, it's Bart's duty to check out the new structure. But his sister Eddie beats him to it. While the high rankers tuck into oranges, Eddie has the whole tree to herself and makes the most of it. She doesn't just want the bark, she wants an entire branch. Bart joins Toprish to tuck into the catkins. Toprish has come a long way in the 2.5 years she's been at the park. Because she's Bart's favoured lady, she's risen steadily through the ranks, reaching the higher echelons. Soon everyone is taking an interest in the willow tree. With Eddie still trying to break off a branch, Lola succeeding but on a smaller scale, and Kathy already stripping the bark off hers. The willow tree has proved a hit with Bart's group.
It wasn't quite the massive, exciting thing that it sometimes is, which is probably because there weren't any leaves on the tree. And we did put their breakfast out there as well for them to come out to, but they're clearly enjoying it now. And I think that will keep their attention for quite some time, rather than it just being really exciting and then over with. It's caught their interest and they're all going over and having a good look around.
Now it's the turn of Bryan's group. How will they react on finding something big and new in their enclosure? There's certainly more enthusiasm, with lots of hooting and hollering, as Ash is first on the scene, followed closely by Rodders. There are only 5 chimps in this small group, so there's no need to rush. Just like the high rankers at Bart's, leader Bryan is more interested in finding breakfast than checking out the tree. Lulu has torn off a piece of bark to chew and taken herself off to a quiet spot. She's 29 years old now and prefers a slower, more peaceful pace of life. Nari takes everything in her stride. She's a remarkable chimp who, despite years of abuse and neglect, has emerged as a much-loved, fun and important part of this little troop. Ash is a very different character. She's grown into the park's largest female, capable of throwing her weight around when she wants to. She's determined to break off a large branch, trying every which way. Tugging, pulling, bending, until eventually, success. Brute force prevails. Ash does all the hard work, but it's Rodders who runs off with the spoils. Two trees and two groups of chimps, both enjoying a fibre-rich addition to their breakfast. It's been a few weeks since ring-tailed lemur Kaiyah was on the receiving end of some very nasty injuries, inflicted by one or more of her family group. She was left with a gaping open wound on her leg, and the team was seriously worried for her survival. But thanks to the efforts of the vet team and the attention of her dedicated carers, Kaiyah has recovered.
There were times where we seriously thought she was going to lose her leg. And then there was even the question of, is a three-legged lemur okay? Will it manage? Everyone's worked really hard to get Kaiyah back to where she is now. And she does bounce back and she's pretty resilient. And I don't really know whether that's ever going to change her behaviour. She's going to go back to Malagasy and be as bolshy and bossy as ever and may get another injury in the future. I don't think she's that clever that she will have changed her behaviour because of this.
Lemurs are very social animals, so during her rehabilitation, the team did their best to offer Kaiyah some company. For a few brief days, she met Patas monkey Mitsa, who had recently lost her best friend, George the lemur. But sadly, it wasn't meant to be. Elderly Mitsa's health had been deteriorating, and as her condition worsened, the team took the difficult decision to put her to sleep.
Everyone absolutely adored her, and she was just a wonderful creature. And she was just I want to say a joy to be around. She wasn't really, because she was quite grumpy, but she made some great noises and she would always chat at you. But Patas monkeys live on average about 21 years and she was about 27 when she died. So she was a good age. So now we've got obviously Kaiyah ready to go back to Malagasy.
The team decided to start with a reintroduction to top female fennel along with white spot. But it didn't go to plan. With Kaiyah letting Fennel know she was in her territory. Now the team have decided the best option is for Kaiyah to return to Malagasy and rejoin the troop, where there are established rules.
It's Fennel's turf, she's got her boys to back her up, and hopefully in that situation Kaiyah will hopefully slot back into the position that she was in before.
But it's going to be one step at a time. Kaiyah will move into the smaller caged enclosure within Malagasy, where she'll be able to meet the others in a more controlled, safe space. This morning, she has twins Kurt and Friedrich for company. But they're ignored as she hurries into the enclosure, struts her stuff, and tells off anyone she can see on the other side of the mesh.
You can tell she's worried because she's back here and there's lemurs everywhere again. But her default setting is aggression, because if she's worried about something, she'll protect herself.
Kaiyah is constantly on the move. Contact calling anyone in sight.
No one is calling back to her, which is quite telling at the minute.
There are some housemates the young female constantly clashes with, including Renton and Indiana. If she's going to fully integrate back into the group, Kaiyah is going to have to rein in the attitude.
Lemur intros are difficult. They've always been difficult. So it took us 9 months to get Kurt and Friedrich into this troop. So it is only day one. So it's still very early. Fingers crossed we'll just give it some more time and hopefully she'll calm down and the ones outside will calm down or lose interest and walk away. And then that'll give her time to try and bond again with Kurt and Friedrich.
It may be a long process, but it's not the first time the team have had to assimilate Kaiyah with the troop. They're confident that once again, she'll be accepted back into the fold. At the Saki monkey house and enclosure, primate care team member Elle has prepared something a little different for doting couple Desmond and Chloe. She's filled pine cones with sunflower seeds and smeared them with honey and banana. It's a treat the pair haven't sampled before.
It's a little bit more interesting, it's a little bit more challenging as well. They don't get this often. We do give them enrichment every day, but we haven't tried this type of enrichment yet. And obviously the things we've got in there, seeds they do get regularly, but honey and banana not so much because they're quite high in sugar. So yeah, just a treat for today.
Elle strings the pine cones up around the outdoor enclosure to encourage the Saki pair to be more active. But as Chloe is the oldest captive Saki in Europe, a few have been left on the platforms to make it a bit easier for her. The sticky treat isn't just for Chloe and Desmond. A former housemate has rejoined them in the enclosure.
Recently, we've had, as we always do at Monkey World, a few extra marmosets arrive, which has filled us up almost to bursting point. So we've had to add a marmoset into the group of Sakis, into the pair of Sakis. So we know that Loki's lived with these guys before, so we know this worked. And Loki pretty much never stops. He's active all the time, he's frantic all the time. But then sometimes you'll see him sunbathing right next to the Sakis and they're pretty chilled out with each other.
The trio are let out, and, true to form, marmoset Loki bounds into the enclosure to investigate.
I think that was some happy chips from Loki. Oh, and Desmond's not so sure over there.
Loki's already locked on to a pinecone as Chloe carefully manoeuvres her way along the platforms, while Desmond still needs some persuading.
Come on, Desmond. Good boy.
Loki has settled back into life with the two Sakis well. His early life in the UK pet trade left him human-focused, and he found living with other marmosets very difficult. Life alongside the Sakis is more stable. He's a common marmoset, and like the rest of the species, adept at negotiating high branches. This means he can reach the suspended pine cones with ease. Marmosets have long tongues, perfect for licking tree sap in the wild, which forms a major part of their diet. Today, he finds it just as useful for honey and banana. The combination doesn't appeal to Chloe, who gives it a cursory glance before tucking into pieces of sweet potato left out by the care team as an addition. Desmond shares her preference, and they breakfast together in their favourite spot. The days are getting warmer and spring is on its way, heralding the arrival of new buds and flowers and fresh leaves on the trees. It brings a feast for many of the park's primates.
Those of you who suffer with hay fever will know that it starts getting a bit sneezy because it's tree pollen time. And one of the trees that we've got here, this willow, is full of pollen. So all these catkins are stuffed full of pollen. And the marmosets and the loris are quite fond of a bit of nectar and pollen. And so we've put this in here to try and encourage some natural behaviours where they actually, come along and sniff it and lick up the nectar and the pollen and normally end up with a bit of a yellow face as a result. So as they move on through the forest, they end up pollinating other trees and plants.
The first group to sample the catkins and pollen will be the park's newest arrivals, a family of 3 common marmosets, now known as the Simpsons. Today's experience will be a first for them.
They are obviously from the pet trade, and so they've never sort of experienced this kind of natural behaviour before, but we're really confident that, given something that's quite nice and smelly and pungent, that they'll come out and they'll actually have a good go at it, so we'll see.
The door to their enclosure is opened, and the trio, led by Bart, head outside. At first, they're a bit wary of the unfamiliar treat. It's excitable Maggie, one of the youngsters, who's first to try the catkins and discover she absolutely loves them. Soon, the others follow her lead. three are quite different in character. Mum Marge is young at heart, often quite playful and generally enjoys life. Bart seems to be growing into his role as the man of the house. And Maggie, although still nervous at times, is coming out of her shell with the support of her family. All three are developing a taste for the catkins. In the wild, a common marmoset's diet consists mainly of tree sap and gum, as well as insects. The foliage in the forests of South America, where marmosets can be found, flowers at different times of the year. The marmosets, like all primates, exploit whatever's available during each season. Pollen dispersal is vital for maintaining healthy forests, which in turn benefits the animals living there.
Primates have really evolved all over the world in different ways to help with that job. So small animals like marmosets and some of the other smaller monkeys will bury their face in the flowers to try and get to that really sugary, rich nectar. And as they do that, their faces get covered like the back end of a bee with this lovely pollen. And they'll move on through the forest and take that pollen with them, and then they'll pollinate those plants by going to the next flower and so on. And so they're really important for that.
In just 2 short months, the trio have been transformed. It demonstrates how pet trade primates, given the opportunity, can overcome their traumas to develop and display more natural behaviours. However, this group might not be a threesome for much longer.
We do have a rather large lady in there, so despite vasectomizing Bart, Marge, the mother, she's almost certainly pregnant. So they're doing everything that a normal marmoset family would do. They've got access to the outside enclosure and are really enjoying that. And put them in the right situation with the right diet, the right environment, the right structure. They're doing things that, you know, we expect them to do as a marmoset group. So they're gouging on branches, they're inspecting pollinated branches and all sorts of things. They're just doing everything that we would really hope that a marmoset family would do in its rehabilitation.
Next time on Monkey Life. At the Park Hospital, it's all systems go for Vet Thesar Sastre and the team.
Right, so let's have a look at this. Yeah, beautiful. No chest metastases, that's good.
And the chimps go potty for porridge pots.